Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer, alongside Mike Gallagher here to take you through a 5-game slate. So 11-game slate yesterday, had a ton of injury information to kind of talk through and walk through. Today, it's a little bit lighter. Take a deep breath, Mike, before another big kind of Friday slate. How are you doing today? I can ask how you're doing today because, it's not an 11-game slate.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your concern. Feeling pretty good. I think I aced the test the last 2 days with the leans.
Yeah.
So feeling pretty good. Got some tough questions today. I guess let's just get right into it and start with DeAndre Ayton. Another big one here and a really good match with the Rockets, who play so fast. He's questionable. He was limited in practice, but the important part to note is that he was less limited than Cameron Payne was. So he did very little
more
practice
limited
yesterday.
More limited.
Yeah.
Practice
Sorry.
pass.
Yep, you're right. More limited. Yep. He was closer to the zero side. My bad. That makes you think that he's not gonna be out there with the late slate start. Late start for the slate. So we'll probably see JaVale start. We saw Frank Kaminsky really come on late, close in the last game of the comeback against the Pelicans. Looking for more of those guys to get playing time. We'll see. It's a contusion, so maybe he feels better today. That happens sometimes, but I'm thinking he's going to sit. Besides the two centers, anything else that you want to dig in, or maybe how that fits in how you're building?
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference in how you're building. We'll talk about it more in depth on the DFS show. But look, we've got a game at 7 o'clock, 2 games at 7:30, and then a game at 10 and 10:30. So there's a really big gap, and there's not a lot of games to pivot to if you guess wrong on this situation. So it's going to be one of those spots from a DFS perspective that you really have to kind of prepare because give yourself outs, because if you end up like in a spot where, let's say you play all these like early spends from the early games, and then you have like JaVale and Frank Kaminsky in your lineups for the late games, there's not going to be anybody to really pivot to. So you got to be thoughtful in terms of how you're going in that direction. In terms of whether Ayton plays or not, I defer to you. I also think Phoenix is 10.5 point favorites here, so that always makes me think like err on the side of caution, especially with a team that made a really deep playoff run last year, losing in the finals to the Bucks. So we'll see. We'll see if we get any sort of shoot around update. That was the key that tipped us off on Tuesday, was that there was some video of Ayton not really participating in shoot around, just sort of throwing entry passes, which is not really something that he would ever do on the court. So
no starter jersey. Starter jersey information's infallible. We all know that. But just to go back to the Monty quote I mentioned the last time, like they wanted to sit him down. So again, like that, nothing has changed in that direction of him possibly missing time. Do you want to hit the Phillies? We'll hit the Philly stuff really quick because Isaiah Joe is also out. So they are now suddenly really thin. So you want to talk about how that could affect guys who could get more minutes now? So we're taking guys out of rotation. It was kind of a last minute in.
The thing that I would just say in general is, Tobias is ruled out for health and safety protocols. Now Isaiah Joe ruled out for health and safety protocols. There's a report that the whole team is kind of getting retested. So we might not know. It might be even worse than we'd be speculating on right now. I imagine that like they only played Isaiah Joe 4 minutes last night. It's a back-to-back, though. I don't think they want to have that tight of a rotation on a back-to-back against Detroit. So who would be the 9th guy to replace Isaiah Joe? I don't know.
Nobody.
Maybe Mocha Joe. But they don't have they got to call up like G League guys, right? To have a 9th guy that could play, because they need a wing or a guard. They have Paul Reed like as a big, but like they need a wing or a guard really to be able to eat some of those minutes. And we saw monstrous minutes from Matisse Thybulle last night. He played 38 minutes, and Maxey played 37. And so that's what happened when they had Isaiah Joe cut down to 4. So I'll be looking for information on whether someone else is brought up. Jaden Springer would be the guy that I think would make the most sense. I don't think anyone that's brought up is going to play a significant role, but that body is necessary to keep the minutes from getting outsized on all the main guys. And in a matchup with Detroit, we saw, yesterday we saw Korkmaz looked like an okay play. Tybalt looked like an okay play. Maxey and Shake looked like okay plays. Like, I think they'd all look pretty good on a 5-game slate. If we don't have a body that we're confident we can project decent minutes to.
Don't forget that Maxey high end is 44 minutes. If you remember when the Sixers were missing everybody last year in January, he got to 44. So
that was when they had. I think they only had
nobody.
7. I think they only had 7 healthy bodies that game.
Yep. Well, it's pretty close.
Dwight played like 4. I mean, at 40. Like it. I mean, it was wild back then.
Yeah.
But yeah. So keep an eye on call ups for them if they have anybody else.
Here's the box of that game. Yeah, it was 7 guys.
Yeah. So crazy. 7 guys available. I mean, that was just, and they were in like 3 of them were centers: Paul Reed, Tony Bradley, and Dwight Howard. It was a mess.
So maybe they do run, because they ran Paul Reed as they pretty much split Bradley and Howard, and they ran Paul Reed as a 4. So I guess they could go back to that. But Reed's been straight center so far.
We would have to project some of that if they don't have anybody that calls up. But man. It's going to be messy. Glenn in the chat, what's up, buddy? Saying Milton minutes limit gone now, so you could play a few more. He definitely could. We keep being told that he could, and we keep not seeing him play it. So fool me 4 times in a row, Doc Rivers, and I'm starting to lose it. But yeah, I mean, I think Milton would be the guy that stands the most to benefit relative to last night because he carried the least workload of all these other guys.
Yeah, 6 minute overlap too, so they did run him at shooting guard a little bit. So definitely, could do a little bit more there.
We'll see if they call up anybody else. I think Jaden Springer would be the guy, but that's going to be a situation where obviously like they're limited, and there's going to be a lot of mid-tier value to be able to pick at. We kind of jumped from basically DeAndre Ayton to Isaiah Joe, so let's go back in the other direction. On the injury report, are we just looking at a situation with LeBron now where he's just questionable for an eternity? Like we're getting back to this thing where LeBron is just questionable for months on end. Yeah,
going from Joe Schmo here to LeBron's quite the jump. And I also my brain's weird. I'm waiting for Joe to have an illness and maybe gastrointestinal, so he could be GI Joe on the injury report. But I'm stupid. But so the Lakers player, he'll be fine. LeBron, the issue was Dwight, right? Got that neck injury.
Yeah, Dwight's questionable. LeBron's questionable. Wayne Ellington upgraded to probable. We both don't know if that means that Wayne Ellington isn't in the rotation yet, because he's been questionable but not playing. So I think Wayne Ellington will get into the rotation, but I think like we talked about last show on Tuesday, we think it's going to be like eased in with him, and it's going to take some time. So we're projecting him for like a very minimal role right now, but it would be nice to get a little bit of clarity on him or Dwight. We're projecting Dwight out kind of like they just don't really need him. If they do play him, it's easier to spread a bunch of minutes, but they're getting a little bit healthier now, and I expect LeBron to play once again.
Well, the quote from Vogel that struck me that may have been misspeaking, but he said basically it was an either-or situation with Dwight or DeAndre.
Okay.
So I mean, it would maybe a 1-for-1 swap where Dwight comes in, DeAndre goes out, and they still run small. And then just to add to the Ellington thing, it would affect Avery Bradley more than anybody else to me. Wayne Ellington was kind of projected as a starter going into this whole thing before he got hurt. So that's something to keep. And that's basically why they got Avery Bradley, I would believe. So, yeah, it would cut him down. They're still going to play Bazemore, probably a decent amount. Unders, we love Bazemore unders here. So hopefully
we are often basing less. I would say that Wayne Ellington's availability just does give more outs, like we talked about this before, to the minutes maybe coming down from Bazemore and Carmelo. I do think as the season wears on, the plan was never to play these guys 27 to 28 minutes a night. No. And so I think as more bodies become healthy, you might see those guys come down to 24, 25. And it doesn't really matter from a DFS perspective, other than Carmelo's had some big games so far. But just something to be aware of and cognizant of. It's one of the reasons that we've been comfortable taking some Bazemore unders. Just we think there's a little bit of extra edge if, the minutes can only go so high and they could go lower when you introduce another body back into the rotation. But remains to be seen if Wayne Ellington will play much. Doesn't have a huge DFS impact on things. Other side of that game, Lou Dort, who I know you like to treat as a star, because whenever Lou Dort's in, you like to bet OKC, and when Lou Dort's out, you like to bet against OKC. But Lou Dort is questionable on the injury report, so is Gabriel Deck. Dort went through practice yesterday, correct?
Correct.
Yep. So it seems like, so we're assuming him in, right?
Yep.
There's no reason not to assume him in here. With OKC, if they were without Dort, things get thin enough because they have all those two-way players on G League assignment that you could start to feel a little bit more comfortable with the main guys' minutes. And we saw that kind of play out in the Golden State game, where they played their main guys a ton of minutes through three quarters, but then the game was so out of hand that they just didn't play them in the fourth. And they all finished around like 30 to 27 or something like that. They were on pace to play like 34 to 36. So I think if Dort's there, you don't get that high-end ceiling, even in a competitive game. I think you get it for like Shea, but I don't think you get it for like Giddey and Baisley and like all the guys. So just something to kind of keep in mind there. I do think Dort is able to play here. Generally, 5-game slate, you got to consider everybody, but Oklahoma City and Houston on a 5-game slate makes it particularly challenging.
Yeah, he did more work than Gabriel inspected Deck. They're not going to probably bomb atomically with Deck out there. So Dort should be good. Just kind of a fall shoulder contusion, pretty minor thing. And then Dagnall had said that they went bigger. They kind of had an opportunity to go with Jeremiah Robinson or with the 4, so he'll go back a messy center rotation, putting Baisley back at the 4 and running out the Giddey Dort wing combo. So
other injury situations to keep an eye on. While we go from Oklahoma City, we should naturally just go to Houston. Daniel Tice is questionable on the injury report. He sat out last game, and that really opened the door for KJ Martin to play a lot more. It also opened the door for more Şengün minutes. Do you expect Daniel Tice to be able to go tonight? And do you think we would see similar rotations tonight if Daniel Tice was unable to go?
In the dark on this one, so I went through everything I could on Silas, and he was asked about injuries. He talked I'm going back like a week here, and he talked about like Kevin Porter Jr.'s ankle sprain when he didn't return and burned me on an over. But so it sounds minor, and like listening to Silas, he was talking about game planning and stuff, and honestly, I think they just held him out to like try that lineup with more KJ Martin, and he is talking of KJ Martin like crazy. So we got to put him in just because we really don't like to lean out on things we don't have any hard information on, and we really don't. So we have him in, but I don't feel great about it, just given the situation. They want to play Şengün, they want to play KJ Martin.
Yeah.
I obviously want to play Jayshawn Tate. Jayshawn Tate's going to be probably guarding a lot of Devin Booker. Pretty good minutes for him too. So, not excited. Hopefully, Şengün versus JaVale would be freaking awesome. A little bit of a. And I should add that they want to put the ball in Şengün's hands. He made a lot of turnovers, made mistakes. Yeah. But Silas continues once again. They basically are just leaning into growing pains. So it should be more Şengün. Hopefully, he can avoid fouls.
In those instances, let's say Ayton does not play. Let's say Daniel Tice does not play. I think the chalk will go to McGee and Frank Kaminsky, because Kaminsky was so strong, playing 29 minutes last game with JaVale playing the other 19. And I think Şengün would actually be kind of an intriguing pivot there at relatively low ownership relative to them, because he didn't have the good performance. And the matchup is one that would look bad on paper, but I don't think it's as bad as it looks on paper because DeAndre Ayton isn't there. And DeAndre Ayton's the thing that I think makes it bad on paper. Let's move over to
Lee Flowers, paper champions. That's the Suns. What a quote. I think I have that name right.
Let's move over to Utah.
Okay. Where they've going to Atlanta, but
I'm holding off from Atlanta because we've got nothing yet.
We're waiting on Collins questionable, but okay.
Right, we're waiting on Collins questionable, but we also know that they might rest somebody too. So fine. We'll go to Atlanta. We'll talk about John Collins questionable.
Magic City,
you don't think he's going to play, I assume.
I don't.
You thought they're going to rest guys. I also I think it's less likely that he plays, but I have not projected it out just yet. It is a 7:30 game, so I don't think it's one we need to take a hard stance on because I think we'll get the information later.
Yep.
But I think it's a situation where they've clearly shown an interest in wanting to manage their main guys. We got Herter as a rest day earlier in the week. I think Collins showing up as Q on the injury report. We were a little bit surprised he played last night. I will say this: they played their main guys a ton last night. Collins got up into the upper 30s. Capella got into the mid 30s. Trey got into the upper 30s. So I'm expecting some shenanigans from Atlanta tonight.
Yeah, back in the Pacers days, I hated Nate McMillan for lying to me all the time. So, maybe he's doing it again and putting Collins out there. Dealing with a foot strain, so muscle related in his foot. So it's not something that, it's something that's minor. So it's something you don't want to rest. So, yeah, I think he's going to sit. Like you said, we can't project it just because we thought that yesterday. There's no reason to project him out. We can adjust, like you said. But, yeah, different matchup. And it does make sense to go with that same route of putting Cam Reddish out there with Hunter, really establish a perimeter defense and have kind of a 1-to-1 against Gobert out there. So we'll see what happens with that. A little bit more Gallo.
Do you think they cut down the minutes from Capella? I mean, he played 33 last night.
You would think, yeah. I mean, that Achilles thing, and Achilles, the big issue is just workload, right? So they don't want to go and flame on him. So you would think he's going to have a little cap on him. Maybe not like a hard cap, but something.
I was surprised that they let him go that much against Brooklyn with Gobert on tap. That was a little bit surprising to me. So yeah, we've talked about Atlanta before. They're very, very deep, and they have lots of different ways they can solve these combinations. And some of their players are priced up from early season performances like Cam Reddish. So while removing John Collins would certainly improve everyone's projection a lot, I don't know that it would necessarily make them like gaping hole must plays in a game against Utah, where these guys' prices are already kind of up a little bit early in the season. But it would certainly help DeAndre Hunter. It would help Cam Reddish. Hunter, it would help his rebounding rate, putting him up, in a stronger position at the 4. Cam Reddish, it would just help his playing time. I think his usage would actually come down a little bit, but I think it would help and be made up for more than that in the playing time. Same with Kevin Huerter, who I think would get more playing time in that situation as well. We'll see if like Bogdanovich or anybody else like pops up, because they've got enough bodies that they can rest a few guys, and they still have plenty of NBA level players to play. All right, let's go to Utah now. Donovan Mitchell questionable on the injury report with a right ankle. So is Royce O'Neal. Tandem right ankle issues. Whiteside on the injury report probable, and Jared Butler probable. Not issues we need to concern ourselves with. But the big question for Utah is always like whenever you get Donovan Mitchell on the injury report, you know that, hey, we've seen them play without Donovan Mitchell. And in those games, Mike Conley's picked it up. Jordan Clarkson's picked it up. Joe Ingles has picked it up.
Oh, boy. Big news. LeBron's out.
Okay. So I guess LeBron's not going to be just – well, he probably still will be questionable for –
Well, and then we're not taking LeBron we're not taking Westbrook unders if you guys don't listen to this anymore. So, let's circle back here.
Yeah. Well, let's finish off Utah first. Let's just finish off Utah.
Okay, sorry about that.
Real quick first. Donovan Mitchell, in Royce O'Neal. I don't think Royce O'Neal's that big of a deal. He came in, played his last rotation. I think he's going to be fine. But Donovan Mitchell, what are your thoughts on his availability tonight?
So just the backstory on this. It was right before half. I want to say 45 seconds left, was driving in transition, turned his right ankle, still kind of went through it, right? Like he kind of walked through it, went down a little bit. Wasn't bad. Went to the locker room, assumed he got taped, came back out, normal time, played fine. Royce O'Neal, I don't know what happened. He did play normal. His rotations were normal, subbing out normal, finished the game, would think he's okay. So there's really no reason to think that these guys don't play. Like in relation to Kyle Lowry's ankle and Darius Garland's ankle, those guys returned. I thought those ankles were a little bit worse than what happened to Mitchell. So I think Mitchell's going to be okay. A game they probably want to get against the Hawks. So definitely leaning in on that one. Not confident. It's a long season, so they could definitely sit out. But I think he's got a good chance to play. Same with Royce. Just because I don't even know what happened with Royce.
And obviously, if Donovan did miss, I would expect Conley and Jordan Clarkson to be underpriced relative to their roles. Bogdanovich would also take up a bunch of usage as well. Like those are the guys that are most prepared to take on Donovan Mitchell's role when he's out. All right, Lakers. We've seen Lakers play without LeBron. We've seen it. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but we have seen it, and it results in a lot of Russell Westbrook. It results in a lot of Anthony Davis. Russell Westbrook. You've got the revenge narrative, not just because. He played on OKC once before, but because he's very tilted at Darius Bazley making a steal and dunk in the last game. So you've got
posting on Instagram after, and Bazley posted on Instagram after.
You've got angry Russell Westbrook with no LeBron here. He's going to be massively chalky.
Dwight just got upgraded to probable.
Okay.
So
that's the other thing is when LeBron goes out, they need to fill more front court minutes. So Dwight, I assume we're going to see less AD at the 5 than the original intention now, because you need to cover more of the 4 minutes. Dwight and DeAndre get into the rotation. But AD and Russ are still going to be really, really strong plays, even with, mixing in some of the bigs to compete with rebounds. Obviously, anybody that goes up against Oklahoma City, you just have huge upside because they're so inefficient. Yeah, I don't know what else to say on LeBron. Do you think I think this makes it so that Ellington and Bradley are both in the rotation? I think Ellington probably plays tonight.
Yeah, worth noting, abdominal strain, as you could see on the injury report. He was previously listed with that ankle thing when Desmond Bain stepped on him a little bit.
Yeah.
So new injury for LeBron. So this whole, I expect him to play is new information, much like Kendrick Nunn. Well, yeah, like you said, the Wings should definitely pick it up. I absolutely positively believe DeAndre Jordan's going to start, moving AD to the 4, filling minutes that way. Still see some of the little glazed donut face ass of Carmelo Anthony, he should be getting pretty good amount of shots. Maybe a deep play. I haven't seen his price yet. Well, you guys will talk prices later, but they're still pretty thin. So they have a ton of shots available now.
Yeah, Gary and I are going to go on at 5 o'clock Eastern behind the paywall to cover all of the DFS slants here. But just to prepare you guys for how the rotations will look and whatnot, I do think you'll see the two bigs play some of the center minutes, AD shifting more of his minutes to the 4, where he's a little bit less fantasy efficient, but the absence of LeBron kind of makes up for all that. Both Russ and LeBron, I assume, will end up being right at the top of the list of spends on this slate. When you think about other spends that are on this slate, you've got, Embiid on the second night of a back-to-back trying to, potentially carry a really thin Philadelphia roster. We'll see who else is out there. And then you've got Jimmy Butler and those types of guys. I think Russ and AD will project above them. But that's it. I think there's nothing else really on the injury report. Did I miss anything else that we should go through?
Josh Richardson, questionable foot contusion. Okay. I don't think there's anything really you need to dig into. They got enough depth there to go with guys. So they've been playing him more in the wings.
Yeah,
somebody.
They have been having to kind of cut minutes randomly in the back end of their rotations, whether it's been Peyton Pritchard, whether it's been Romeo Langford or Grant Williams. Grant Williams has been the person who's lost the playing time of late. But it's just a situation with Boston where they have too many players of somewhat similar skill level, and that it ends up being really, really matchup dependent. So when somebody like Josh Richardson if he does miss, it doesn't really move the needle much because they have all these guys that they can fill in and give 12 to 14 minutes, and they're not going to be DFS relevant, and it's not really going to move the needle on kind of the main guys either because their roles are pretty set. The one thing that I mentioned was Al Horford on the injury report for Boston. Was there anything there?
Nah, nope.
Okay, because second night of a back-to-back, you just wonder if they would look towards a rest situation for Horford. But yeah, so that'll do it for
chocolate milk, man. Chocolate milk's good for you for Al Horford.
The chocolate milk
just one more thing to wrap up.
And doubles your rebounding rate.
Yeah, I just want to add LeBron getting hurt again with an ab muscle injury. Man, I mean, the age model is coming for the GOAT here.
Yeah, you can't play a guy 37 minutes every single night at that age and not have some wear and tear. It's just gonna happen. So yeah.
Muscle pulls for an older guy, man. It's a tough scene.
All right, before we get out of here, Raj is asking, are full stat projections not working? They are working perfectly. We release them after 3 o'clock Eastern every day. So they are working. We just haven't released them yet. It's 2:24 Eastern to the minute right now, Raj. So thank you for your patience.
It'll be I love the refreshing it, like the Cookie Monster, waiting for the cookies to come out.
Yeah, exactly.
I love you guys. Yeah.
We'll probably be a little bit later on that today just because we want to source props right before. But I would guess before 3:30 Eastern, the full stat projections will come out. That'll do it for us. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here to get all the alerts on when we go live. It is Monday through Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern, breaking down the injury report. I'll be back with Mike tomorrow to do the same one last time this week. And I'll be on behind the paywall tonight at 5 o'clock Eastern with Gary Hartman, breaking down tonight's slate. Make sure to join us there if you are a new to our subscriber. If you're not, I'm sorry. Goodbye. We'll see you tomorrow.